Daniel Ellis. Oh, what a pleasure talking to Daniel. He's from the UK. He's an energy nerd. Does anybody know what that is? Just as a child, he just loved energy. And one of his teachers as a young child said, if you could figure out a way of, creating energy efficiently, you could be a millionaire. And it just stuck with him. And he's a managed service provider as well. He's in the ConnectWise PitchIT program, which is this great incubator program, 25 vendors. And he has the MSP and was at a school and saw that they were wasting energy, leaving all the workstations on, etc. He builds a little application and to turn them off and see how much money they'd save. And then years later, he got approached again and turned it into a whole platform. He tested out at his managed service provider practice and now, spreads it to other managed service providers where it's got a couple of modes where it can see how much you could save, and then another mode where it can actually ask to be, turned on and turned off. And PC Power Save is the name of the company. But it's just a great pleasure to talk to Daniel and see an entrepreneur, just how his mind works. And his response to discipline was very interesting as well. Really enjoyed my conversation with Daniel. And I look forward to being there when he gets to his goal of 500,000 endpoints. Thanks so much for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business? And it lasted over 25 years. Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family and their passion and their careers and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Disciple Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. So I will be having conversations with a lot of the coaches and the finalists from 2023 and, just kind of talking about them a little bit and their solution in some future podcasts. We want to make kind of an introduction to that as well.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, like I said, as the years progress, more people are getting involved. And then back to these vendors looking for a way to create a name for themselves with consistency. They need people like you, which is why I'm so thrilled that you're willing to work with me and work with us on this. So you're going to be you've graciously accepted to host these, and I appreciate that. Where you'll interview all our contestants. You're also going to interview last year's head coaches, last year's judges, last year's finalists. So you're doing all that. And I think it's important, for if you're a vendor and you're watching these, take note of this and how you get more involved. Watch the program. Watch what these men and women are all doing with us, because they're doing a lot. That's how you grow your business. If you're an MSP, watch these things. Get to know who people are and then inquire, because you're all looking to have stack alignment and you're all looking for credible and reputable businesses. We're vetting them out for you. We're putting them on display for you. Watch them, ask questions, find out, do your due diligence. Don't wait until IT Nation Connect to see you like at a booth and then buy 5 or 6 different technologies that you don't need.
So 2024 PitchIT, ConnectWise PitchIT. What's new and exciting about it?
Oh my Lord. So for those that have not followed any of this, I took over the PitchIT program 2 years ago, and we've had such great success, with like really great success. Went from, it's become one of the most predominant programs in the space now. Matter of fact, I was doing some research the other day, and about 5 or 6 other pitching things have spun off from mine and from ConnectWise PitchIT with other people that are running it. So it's great to see, because I think it's the thing about Pitch It is it's all about innovation. It's all about being daring and willing to do things, right? I mean, as an entrepreneur, it's a scary situation. You have to be ignorantly optimistic, and you have to be willing to maybe fail a lot more than you'll succeed, and you have to have very thick skin. But you always have to be innovative and creative. So it's nice to see that this has spun off into other groups that have started doing it, because I think the hardest challenge for most startup vendors is getting their name out there, right? Getting people to know that they exist. And the reality of it is you can't just be there one time. You have to show consistency. You have to be in there for the long haul, for the partners to really be able for you to establish credibility, right? Because there's been plenty of fly-by-night businesses that have came out big and gone in 6 months. And for partners, their whole business is built around these vendors, these products. So they're making lifelong business decisions off of these. So, so it's great, it's exciting, but back to the program itself, it's jumped leaps and bounds. It went from being just a competition where they picked a few people, a few really good product companies to pitch at live at IT Nation Connect, to where we turn into an accelerated incubator program it's a season. It's literally a competitive season now at this point. And went from 5 or 7 or maybe even 10 vendors that are involved until they narrowed down to 3. To 2 years ago was 18. Last year was 26.
Wow.
And we had way more applications than that. That was just the ones that we thought were the best fit. So we're getting ready, and we're getting ready to put out the press release in a couple of days, because then the application process will start February 1st. So I recommend anybody from around the entire globe to apply. We've had over just last year alone 6 different countries represented, between the U.S., Canada, to Israel, to Australia, to New Zealand, to the UK. They all involved in this competition.
You, Daniel Ellis, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you. Tell me about having the hobby of board gaming.
Yeah. Well, it's just the modern nerd culture, I suspect, that I'm quite a member of. Board games have changed a lot since I was a kid. They're now, a 4-hour exercise where you end up getting your calculator out halfway through. But it's just a nice social. You can go to events, festivals. You can meet up with your friends and just spend all day playing games together. One of my favorite ones is actually based on a book by my favorite science fiction author, which is a little strange.
Which is?
Oh, sorry. It's the Mars trilogy by Kim Stanley Robinson, which is it's what the authors I like are all scientifically accurate sci-fi, and it's quite a fascinating story about the future colonization of Mars.
Yeah. Now, Douglas Adams, that was just pure fiction. Nothing was
pure fiction, but a lot more gripping, wasn't it?
Yeah, very gripping. Of course. Yeah. Yeah, he's one of my favorites as well. What's the big game that they play around here? You got resources of like mining and oh my goodness, I was playing it for a little while. It was fun, but I can't remember the name all of a sudden. It rode away from me.
I know Catan's quite famous for such things.
Settlers of Catan. Yeah.
Yeah, it took me a long time to start playing that one. I don't know why. It's a sort of rite of passage expectation.
Yes.
As a board gaming nerd, you're supposed to play that one, but it took me a while.
And there's no app yet. There's no game you could play it online. It's purely board. Correct. I looked a couple years ago. I haven't seen it since.
Well, during the COVID lockdown era, there was a virtual reality table. It's just called Tabletop Simulator, and you could lift up the cubes of a regular board game, and a lot of games were ported over to that, so that you could play with your friends remotely. So, well, not quite, human versus the AI kind of thing, but just pick up virtual objects in a virtual world and put that token down, pick up that card, look at the back. Yeah, but no, it's just a lot more social version of computer gaming.
Yeah. So the board games you play are just that. There's actually physical paper and cardboard, etc.
Yeah. You got it.
That's great.
You got it.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah. We don't see that anymore, or we don't see enough of that anymore.
Well, I think you'll be pleased to know it's making a bit of a comeback. I think in the millennial generation, which is what we're doing. And board game cafes are all around the world. So if I go on holiday anywhere, I'll check out the local board game cafe and see what they got.
It's so funny you said that. My daughter goes to university, and we had breakfast, and there was board games everywhere. It was absolutely incredible, and I guess that's exactly what that is. That's fantastic.
Yes, absolutely, and it's just quite wonderful being able to shoot the breeze with everyone and engage in a nice little bit of friendly strategy.
Yeah, that is really cool. We got to get back to that. I think, playing a lot of those games too by yourself against an AI. How would that fare? Well, it wouldn't be as gripping.
No, it's not quite the same.
Mm,
Because I always found the problem with computer gaming is, and therefore the AI-based board gaming is,
mm,
the AI tends to get a bit predictable after a while. And once you've played
mm.
20 or 30 games, you can kind of predict what's going to happen. AI is quite good at that. You see companies using it because it'll generate predictable outputs generally.
I remember when Kasparov lost to chess to Deep Blue, and his complaint was, it's not good at chess, it's just good at beating me. His point was is that just the way he plays, it found a way to win, and he wouldn't change the way he plays. Fascinating.
That is fascinating.
I may
Yeah.
have that wrong. I may have that
Well,
wrong, Daniel. I
I'm
thought
going to
that was
pretend
the
you
case.
didn't. I'm going to take it. I'm going to take that as read. Yeah. I always just assumed it was great at brute forcing.
Right. Right.
Hmm.
Yeah, because we had it actually playing Jeopardy here in the States for a while, and it couldn't be connected to the internet,
I
right?
remember. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember that now. Watson, wasn't it? IBM Watson was
Watson. It was
it
IBM's
one.
Watson. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it couldn't be connected anywhere. Yeah, it's fascinating where that is going.
I mean, it's strange that if you're playing Jeopardy against an AI that can look up information
Right.
in every encyclopedia and copy of Wikipedia known to humankind instantly, it doesn't need a connection to the internet if it's
Right.
got an offline copy of Wikipedia in its head.
Mm, mm, mm. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah. I wonder where that's going. I wonder where that's
yes.
going. So how
Oh.
long have you been an energy nerd, Daniel?
Well, it's strange. A couple of months ago, me and a few old school friends, we met up with a school teacher who was visiting my part of the country for the first time since he taught us kids when we were about 8. And I said to him, you once said something to me that stuck me down an energy path for the rest of my life. He
Wow.
said, if you can figure out a way of generating energy in this particular manner, in this renewable, clean way, then you'll be just a percentage. You'll make you a multi-millionaire. It stuck
Mm.
with me forever, that. And when I was already a little bit of electrical nerd,
Hmm.
low voltage electronics, little 12 volt, 5 volt circuits.
Yeah.
When I was already a little bit of an electrical nerd, hearing that from a teacher, that stuck with me forever.
Wow.
And yeah, so I would say since the word go, since my whole life.
Hmm. And did you find yourself conserving energy or finding interesting sources of it? Like how's that manifested?
Okay. Well, more stories from childhood. I did a lot of live events, theatre, open air Shakespeare.
Good for you.
Specifically, I was on the technical crew.
I
And
see.
when you're building a theatre in a forest, you are dragging around 125 amp 3-phase cables, lots of 16 amp connectors, climbing scaffolding,
Mm.
running cables around everywhere, and you learn how the distribution boards are set up, how much load to put on a generator, what sort of equipment to order. And if you're already a little bit of a technical nerd, that sticks with you. So
Hmm.
from that age, I got a little practical experience on wiring things up: house electrics, stage electrics, outdoor event electrics.
Wow.
I recently ran a calculation because I'm still associated with the same theatre group that I've been associated with for my entire life.
Hmm.
I ran a calculation recently and figured out that if we bought a electric car that does bi-directional charging, so where you can charge it up and then you can take electricity out of it,
Hmm.
we could run the entire play off one little Nissan. One little Nissan.
Wow.
We'd charge it up, take it to site, plug in the theatre, run the whole theatre off it for a performance, charge it up at night, and then there you go. No need to rent a generator anymore. But that's
Clever.
the sort of silly amusement I do for fun.
Hmm.
10 years ago, I ran some calculations on how much energy a household loses when you open the fridge to see if there's anything you want, find that there isn't, and close it again. And then 2 hours later, you come back and do it again. Yep. This is what I call fun, man.
Yeah, yeah, that's fascinating. And how about the actual over here in the States, we do a lot of I mean, our sources are generally nuclear. There are a lot of water. There's some solar. How's it there in the UK?
In the UK, we've got a whole mix. We had quite proudly gotten rid of all coal about 3-4, must have been more than 3-4 years ago now, but we've gotten rid of all the coal. On some good days, you get about 55% of the energy coming from wind, but not so much. You got a lot of interconnects. We've got interconnects with France and Ireland and I believe Belgium and the Netherlands. So we can get, I think it's a gigawatt from each of those countries if we need it. Not gigawatt, I think it might be a megawatt. So we can import a lot. There is some hydro in the country, but most of all here, because we got the North Sea, which is a big oil and gas field, we're about, when we need to ramp up the power temporarily, we're 50-60% gas, which is closed cycle gas turbine, I think it's called. So we can ramp that up quite quickly.
Didn't Germany double down on coal? They call it clean coal. Do I have that wrong?
I can't entirely remember. I don't know anything about the German coal situation, but I know they are massive on solar in Germany.
Really?
Yeah, it was interesting. In 2010 in the UK, you'd see 1 or 2 panels on a roof periodically from some early adopter. But you go out to Germany, and I travelled through to Austria, and the whole roof was covered, which is what people are now starting to do now.
Sure.
And, you got these 7 to 10 kilowatt systems generating you power from your rooftops, whereas, back in the day, we had 200 or 300 watts in the UK. So they're quite ahead on that. I know France is really, really big on nuclear.
Right. France is nuclear. Yeah.
I don't entirely mind nuclear. It's not strictly renewable, but I think it's the best we got at the moment, and it's not bad at all. The future is going to be, in my opinion, a lot of energy storage technology. There's in the UK here, we've got these 2 reservoirs in Wales. They call it Electric Mountain.
Nice.
And they just release water from the top reservoir to the bottom when they need power through a hydro turbine. And when they've got surplus energy on the grid from all the wind and solar, they pump it up again. And one of my clients in my MSP, because I'm an MSP owner, is a pumped storage hydro facility that I've joined them as a sort of advisory technical director, because I adore this kind of thing. And you're seeing water being used for pumped storage. You're seeing gravity batteries, which is essentially a big container full of metal at the top of a many kilometer tall mine shaft. That's another way of energy storage. And you're obviously seeing batteries. So I think that's going to be the future. But nuclear tops it all off.
It really does. Yeah. We've had some incidents here. Well, of course, the biggest incident would be there in Russia, right? But we had a couple of small ones here. And so people are generally afraid of it, but the newer technology on it's quite safe.
Yes, absolutely. If the technology is treated right, it is quite safe. And a lot of these industries, they've got this, there's a wonderful culture in the aerospace industry, which I believe they try and have this blameless culture. If you discover a fault in process or procedure or something that could be dangerous, you are obligated to tell the entire industry, announce it, and you won't get into trouble. But the priority is on making sure the problem never happens again, not kicking you for causing it. And I believe it's the same in the energy industry, where they're very, very keen on making sure that if you detect the slightest possibility of a fault with the way things are done, you must tell the rest of the industry to stop it happening.
I think it was that way for a while with security too. When there was a new virus, they all kind of agreed to tell each other.
Of course, yes. That's our industry.
Yeah. I remember that too. I remember, I think it was in Germany too. The person who made the Melissa virus came in and bragged about all two of their coworkers on Monday, and then they turned them in. They got like $250,000, I understand, something like that. But
Goodness me.
Yeah, it's changed now because those bad actors are not going to work and bragging about it on Monday anymore.
No, well, unless they are going to work at the bad actor factory.
Yes.
It's become, the cyber villainy has become industrialized now.
It certainly has. That sounds like one of your authors would create something like that. The Bad Actor Factory. Sounds like a good name of a book.
I'm almost certain that you're right. I'm almost certain that I've heard this very premise in a story somewhere. Wouldn't surprise me, hey?
So you started your MSP a while ago, right? That's EPX, I believe. And did you still have this energy nerd fascination while doing
Oh,
that?
only in the background. When the company first started, it was 2005. I was a student who was a techie, and I did what a lot of MSP owners do and thought, hey, I could go self-employed and start
Mm,
doing this and making the money
mm,
myself.
mm.
And I had lots and lots of ideas, lots of technologies that I was thinking. I was into CCTV, building automation, in-car electronics. And it didn't take long to pare this down to, we do IT support now. That's our
Mm.
business. So we had mostly IT with a little bit of software development within our first year, and we
Hmm.
dropped the software development after 4 or 5 years, and the software development turned into a little bit more consulting. But by about year 5, we knew exactly what we were, and then spent the next 14 years, so we're in year 19 now, spent the next 14 years building on that, refining it, doing some M&A,
Hmm.
and just been in that industry ever since. But the energy love has never gone away. I like building
Mm.
silly electric things where I can.
Why did you drop the software development?
Yeah, it simply dropped because software development is very lucrative until the project ends.
Right. It's not recurring.
Absolutely, yes, exactly. If you get a decent contract with a customer, great. You can say, okay, well, here's the day rate, and it's going to take 6 months. Then you hire an engineer to help you. And then suddenly we had 4 or 5 engineers. And then the 2
Nowhere.
projects stopped,
Right.
and we couldn't replace them because sales was never our strong suit. So we focused on recurring revenue based services, which is what the MSP industry is all about.
It certainly is. Same thing happened with me, Daniel. I mean, I started my MSP and, we got a couple of software gigs, right? So we started working big ones, and you ramp up and then there's those valleys and you can't fill them and then they turn into consulting. Well, maybe we could do some extra things and
Yeah.
it's very hard to the best way of course is to kind of do what you did is to have those software engineers make a platform that you can sell and do recurring.
We realized that too late.
Yeah.
Um, a friend of mine had a mini software development company, and when he wanted out, he just gave it to us. So
Wow.
we put all of our software development work into that company, and
Mm.
we realized about a year before our projects ended and we had to close, just about a year before then, that we should have built a platform. And
Mm.
all these people coming to us with requirements, we should simply have said, purchase our platform and pay us this to customize it to your needs.
Mm.
But we realized that too late. However, I've noticed that old time of software development seems to be rearing its head again in the
Yeah.
MSP space, definitely in my business. Specifically, digital transformation and
Mm.
helping businesses out with the introduction of AI into their business, or helping you out with business workflows. And the more mature
Automation.
customers, like the 100 user plus businesses, seem to be clamoring for this, where they say, I need help making my day-to-day business more streamlined, making my
Mm.
workflows more streamlined. And
Yeah,
so it's coming back.
it really is. And I joined HTG, which is a big peer group, which is now Evolve, and we had service leadership Paul Dipple saying, "Don't touch software development. Don't touch it unless you're Joe." And so I'd be like, because we turned it into a platform, we ended up making a BI product and selling it, and then those software engineers turn into support, and then they turn into resolving tickets. But yeah, especially now with automation, there's still a lot of great need for that mindset of software development.
It's a tricky mindset to hire for, I've found.
Yeah, it
Just finding
is.
people who think not only who have the ability to program, but can think systemically and with a commercial business hat on. It's a
Mm.
fascinating combination.
Yeah, because I'd have to, Daniel, I'd have to double their hours every time. Yeah, this is going to take 30 hours. I said, no, it's not. No, it's
Yep.
not. I know, and the same thing happened. I was doing the support, I was doing application development, and it got to a certain point where, okay, we got this big project, we need some hand. I say, okay, you know what? I'll take a couple days and I'll help. And they'll all say, that's okay, boss. That we don't, So I got to the point where my skills were a little rusty and I couldn't help, but I could still estimate and forecast how long these things are going to take. And that mindset of an engineer is, oh, I could just bang this out.
No, you cannot. Yeah, you need someone with technical knowledge and business knowledge to write the spec. Even in my MSP, we have a member of staff whose job it is to do the technical assessments, to do all the quotations. Not the day-to-day transactional ones, but the big projects. Because everyone always, I say everyone, sorry, me always underestimates how big the job's going to be.
Yeah.
So we need a few people to say, hang on a minute, bolt on this time for contingency, bolt on this time for end user training. What about this time for if the user changes something, and so on.
Yeah, scope creep is another big issue with application development. Yeah. This is what I said, the customer says, but I really meant this.
You know what? It's interesting. Whenever I was building up a quotation, I used scope creep as my upsell. So when I was talking to the customer, if I got the slightest inkling they wanted something outside of scope before we'd quoted them, I would put it in a section called Suggestions, entitled, We're not giving you this, but here's some stuff we could do later. So all their ideas that I knew they wanted would go in this list of suggestions for the future. So one day they would come back to us, and it worked most of the time. People would come back saying, hey, we really like this suggestion that you made. Good idea. It was your idea. I just wrote it down. But then that was the upsell. But yeah, software development, I like designing products. I like making them. But doing them, I like making them to sell rather than making them to order. Software development wasn't. The software development company was great, but only if you've really, really got your sales figured out.
Yes. And like you said before, sales and marketing was not our strength, just like most tech-led businesses, and you eventually have to learn how to be better at that. So how do you arrive at PC Power Save, Daniel?
Of course, sure. So the story went, one of our MSP customers, I was solely looking after, and they were a school. They had 200 machines, and we're talking these machines that were the desktop form factor ones drawing 300 watts apiece. They didn't quite have CRTs on them, but they were old school TFT monitors. And at the end of the day, or outside of classes, the computers were just left on all the time. And the teachers would never turn them off. The pupils would never turn them off. And sometimes the caretaker, the janitor, would go around the building and hit the main switch in every room and shut them all off in a horrifying manner. Any staff members who are trying to work late, one staff member works late, they leave the whole computer suite on all night. So I made a little program in Visual Basic 6 and I distributed it with PS exec, and it would pop up on the screen just like Netflix, and it would say, excuse me, are you still actually here? And if they didn't say yes within 10 minutes, it just turned the computer off. Now, fast forward 10 years after that, after I made this widget, the school had long closed, and the price of energy back then, it wasn't very high, so we didn't get much take-up. Fast forward to 2 years ago. In the UK, the price of energy had gone from 5 pence per kilowatt to a government cap of 35 pence per kilowatt.
Oh my goodness.
It was trying to go higher. Some businesses that were not protected by the cap were paying 70 pence per kilowatt. Wow. Thank you, Mr. Putin. Well, not thank you. And the price of running a computer, it was no longer £3 or £4 a month for 24/7. It was now £30 a month.
Wow. So
I thought, it's time I dusted off this old software product of mine. So I had it rewritten with a programmer for, it was C#.net. We ran it through all the security tests, got all these certifications for it, the security certificates, and we designed it with a control panel for an MSP. So we tried it out at our MSP with some of our customers. And yeah, it just went from there. It started as a little widget I made for a school, and it ended as a commercially viable product.
I know VV6 so well. Boy, I played a long time in that. So is it now an agent that's on workstations?
You got it. Yeah, you got it.
So there's an agent on there, and it's set for a particular time to turn off, or a prompt if the user is still working.
Well, yeah. So I'll tell you how it works. It's got two modes: analyze and optimize. So the analyze mode, we are currently not charging anything for it. You roll it out through the RMM with a single command. It sits on the computer,
Smart.
and it looks at the hardware. It looks at the make and model of motherboard and what type of discs, what type of monitor you've got. It then looks at the event log to see how often is this computer turned on, turned off. It analyzes the processes to see what's this computer doing with its time when it is on. And it looks to see how often the person actually uses the machine, like how much the mouse and keyboard are interacted with. And then it uses all of that information, crunches some numbers, and it says, this computer draws, on average, this many watts of power. And over the course of a day, this many watt hours of power. And given your cost of energy, this is how much this computer costs you per day, week, month, year.
Wow.
And here's how much CO2 it's kicking out as well, based upon your energy provider. So it does all of that. That's the analyze mode. So right now, that doesn't cost anything. It'll generate the MSP a report. So the MSP can look at this document and say, across customer number one's 40 computers, they are currently spending this much, and they are overspending by this much, that's what I could sell them. And then the MSP can then go and meet with the customer and say, we've noticed you're overspending. So here's what we think you should be spending. Do you mind if we optimize? So that's where we switch on the optimize module. And the optimize module, it has a few little functions to try and make it more CPU efficient. But by far the most impactful saving by a long way is when the computer's not being used, it pops up and asks if you would like to hibernate. At the end of the working day, at a time designated by the MSP, it pops up and says, are you still here? Just like Netflix, when you're watching too much telly, it says, are you still awake?
That's right, it does,
yeah. Yeah. And it says, go away, come back in 15 minutes, or go back in 2 hours, or don't bother me again ever. And it's popped up when I've been working on my computer in the evening, and I say, oh, just give me another hour, or give me another 2 hours, sorry. And what it does is it hibernates your machine if you don't press yes within 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, whatever the MSP sets it to. So the optimize mode, it does a few things, but mainly it'll hibernate your computer when the computer's not in use. And most critically, every single minute the computer is off because of PC power save, it adds that to the report so that the MSP can say, this is how much money we saved you. If we didn't have our product, this is how much it would have cost you. So every single QBR, you can go to the customer and say, here's how much money we, the MSP, have saved you. And you can, if you're giving the product away for free as part of your stack, that's adding value to your company. If you're selling it as a product, then it's justifying why they're paying what they're paying. So there you go. There's analyze and there's optimize for you.
Isn't it, starting up your laptop or your workstation, doesn't that draw the most power of its session, or do I have that wrong?
That used to definitely be the case, and it's not quite the most. There is a spike when you first turn the computer on, most certainly, because it's got to execute all the programs and run updates on things or whatever it likes to do. But with the more modern computers, that spike only lasts up to about 3 or 4 minutes. And now that computers are a bit more energy efficient, my desktop that I'm talking to you on now is probably, well, when you first turn it on, it's about 120 watts, but on average, it idles about 90. But the peak for this computer is probably when I'm in this video chat, or when I'm using Adobe Premiere or playing a computer game. That's when the graphics card kicks in and it ramps up to 200 watts. So it's not quite when it first turns on that it draws the most power. But you're right that there's a spike, but it's not as bad as everyone thinks anymore.
And then inconvenience to users will be like, well, when I get to my desk, I just want it to be on. I don't want to sit and wait.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's 2 schools of thought on that one. There's three. One of them is the end user can right-click on the software and say, do not bother me again for click, 5 days. So they got some options there.
I see.
The other one is the amount of time a computer now takes to turn on.
Yeah.
Now that we're on Windows 11, my computer from off to usable is about 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Which is great. Thank you, SSDs.
Right. SSD does it. Yeah.
But the third way of thinking, it's a little more brutal, I'm afraid, which is the end users shouldn't mind it once they've done it a few times, once they've gotten used to it. But the managers, the owners, they're not as bothered. They want this saving because the cost savings can be quite powerful.
Interesting.
And just as a little example for you, we met with one customer through the QBRs, and across 80 machines, we fired up the software. Within a month, they were saving £500. So that's $650, I think.
About that, yeah.
Yeah, so they were saving that much money within a month across their 70-80 computer network. And for that, the managers, it was just too important. It was just too valuable. They couldn't pass up that opportunity.
And Daniel, you're probably collecting all this data across everyone that's on there. So you could say your platform is saving this much money.
Yes, exactly. We will be running some reports on that, or making a leaderboard, or trying to connect it up to the website with one of those nice fast spinning counters. This company has saved, PC Power Save have saved this much energy. My big goal for the company, I've written it down, was 500,000 endpoints on the software, which is enough energy to power 29,000 households.
Wow.
That's how much energy we would save.
For how long? Power the households for?
As long as the 500,000 machines are on the software.
I see.
Every day they'll save enough to power 29,000 households.
But when you say power 29,000 households, for how long will you power the households?
So for every day the software is installed, it'll power 29,000 households for a day.
I see.
That's that. Wow. Yeah. So sort of 1-to-1 ratio.
Boy, that's a nice feeling. You're saving that much energy, Daniel. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's almost enough to offset how much AI draws now. Look, I don't think anyone, one person has got the magic bullet to fix all environmental problems. But if every company just does a little bit of something, which is why I made this, that's what this whole product's for, so that companies can just try and do a little bit better to try and contribute. Everyone wants to help, but people got to watch their wallet too.
That's true. Small steps. I try to help as much as I can, but we do the best we can. Now, you won't work. It doesn't work on a Mac, or you don't touch servers either, correct?
I definitely don't touch servers because I am not going to be inhibiting any processes, shutting them down, and there are already lots of efficiency tools out there for servers. Mac will be coming, but Mac, they are fantastic for power management already.
Are they really?
Oh, they're beautiful. They'll do a lot of automated hibernation, low power mode. They'll suspend CPU at certain times. They've really figured it out on Apple, at least on their laptops.
How about peripherals, tablets, printers, etc.?
Oh, this is a bit of a spoiler here. So at the moment, there's a function built in that will turn off attached monitors. But one of the functions that we are working on, which I haven't shouted about very much, but it's where it will interact with just two brands. One is Cisco, Meraki, and the other is Ubiquiti. And what it will do is it will add a schedule to the PoE function on switches. And the story behind that one was yet another school. One of our customers recently had 200 wireless access points fitted. And these 200 wireless access points were drawing, let's just say 20 watts each. 200 wireless access points, 20 watts, that's 4 kilowatts. 4 kilowatts running at the current energy price of 35 pence per kilowatt hour. That's £1.40 per hour, 24 hours a day, 365 days per year. And I guarantee that right now, it's 9 o'clock at night at the time of recording, I guarantee some schools will be closed and the wireless access points will all be switched on. Same goes for call centers with hundreds of phones. Don't put the PoE power setting on your security cameras, mind you, but wireless access points and phones, we're adding in a little tool to turn them off and on as well. Switches are actually pretty good because they monitor power consumption natively as a function.
Do they?
So we'll be adding that one on. That's a little spoiler for you.
Yeah, PoE, power over Ethernet, was a great advance. You don't have to put in power. It actually comes right over the Ethernet cable. That was so cool. And
wasn't it?
Yeah, when that happened.
Have you seen some of the stuff where PoE is going, where they've actually got suspended ceiling lighting panels that are PoE powered now?
Wow.
Because they're saying, hey, well, while you're in there with a network switch running these network cables, why don't you make the lighting panels connectable?
You're right there.
And of course, because of Internet of Things, they're IP-enabled lighting panels, because why not?
So, Daniel, you're part of the ConnectWise PitchIT program, an incubator, 25 vendors that all work with MSPs. And how do you like the program? What's your goal there?
Oh, I think there's some lovely people. Even Sean. There's a great group of people on there, and we've just been sharing ideas with a whole bunch of them, and the training courses, the training materials that are being given to us. Yeah. It's wonderful. It's just being able to share ideas with this company, and having some industry experts, such as your good self, some weeks back, has been fantastic. Yeah.
It's such a cool program, and I don't know why more companies aren't doing it. It helps everybody.
Well, I think that's one wonderful thing about the MSP community in general. As an industry, we seem to have embraced helping each other. And you don't see that in a lot of industries, do you?
No, you don't.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in CompTIA. I'm in the UK, a buying consortium called Network Group, and we're also members of the ConnectWise Evolve peer groups. And it's just wonderful being able to walk into I love introducing someone to this environment who's not previously been in it. Because then you walk into the bar and you sit down and they're all feeling a bit nervous. Oh, do I want to give away my secrets? And you're sat with 5 or 6 people spilling their secrets to you. And the newbie goes, what? How are you just revealing this to mate? That's how the industry works, I'm afraid. That's just how it is here.
When I first joined HTG, which is now Evolve, the peer group, I was so happy. I'm not by myself anymore. I'm in a room with people who have similar problems. It's absolutely wonderful. I recommend peer groups to every business.
Yeah, I wish more businesses had them. I wish they had this kind of environment. When I've been doing VCIO work for customers, trying to give them business advice, I normally ask, is there a peer group for your industry? And so far, 100% of the time, the answer's been no. I don't know how our industry managed to do it, but I'm really glad they did. And I do thank them.
I'm sorry.
So no, I do thank them. I thank the HTG group for what they did. I thank ConnectWise for what they've managed to build. It's wonderful.
It absolutely is. There's many peer groups that are a bit horizontal. There's just like enterprise. What's the one EO here that our friend Jameson West is part of, right? So it's like entrepreneurial group or something, but it's not industry specific. It's they're horizontal. They're not part. So that's it's so you're in a room with a baker and a lawn care and and a lawyer. It's hard to kind of find commonalities there.
You're so right. You're sharing management principles, but you're not able to benchmark this particular W2 ratio or this particular KPI. You can't benchmark that against a baker.
Okay. Maybe. I don't know. Are there any particular industries that really need power saving? I just mentioned some right there. I mean, there's got to be some that are worse than others.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned the baker because they use ovens. But if you mean which would benefit from PC power save the most, then I would love to say places like video and graphic design because of the power of their computers. But that's an industry where they need to leave their computers in use out of hours for rendering purposes. Essentially, a lot of professional services where their job is the Microsoft Office suite or the web-based CRM. The sort of places that have an office of 50 people and they're not overly diligent in shutting them off at the end of the day, or they'll leave for a meeting in the morning and they'll come back at the end of the day having had their computers be wasted all day. Because, not just IT power usage puts stress on the air conditioning plant equipment because it's generating excess heat. So The only example I've been able to come up with, which is an absolute yes, has been a call center that operates at certain hours, because that's where you have a room full of hot desks.
Right.
Yeah, that's been a pretty easy win. But the professional services and the call centers, I'd say, are pretty on par with one another.
And do you practice energy hygiene in your own life?
To the extent a nerdy person does. As an example, I had a little LED that sat in my lounge. And I'm on one of these energy providers where the price of energy changes every 30 minutes.
Whoa.
Based upon national usage and the wholesale price. Because at the wholesale level, energy is actually priced every 30 minutes. But to make it easy for us consumers, the energy wholesalers average it out and pick a number. But there was a provider here in the UK that provided it to us every 30 minutes at their cost price plus markup. So I had this little light in the lounge, and the light would get redder and redder and flashing purple the higher the price of energy got. And when the price was super low, it would flash green. And I had that connected up with IFTTT to some smart bulb devices so that it would shut off the electric car charger and turn it on when the price was cheap. And the dishwasher and the washing machine, in my home, we do not use them until it's after 30 minutes past midnight, because that's when the price drops the lowest every day. So I do silly little things like that. And I use the most powerful method is I use PC Power Save.
Yes, you do.
But yeah, you should have seen it actually. I have a little tiny computer that powers my lounge television that I use for Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, that kind of thing. And more often YouTube these days. That thing, when I put Power Save on it, it just had this alarming line on the graph to say, this is how much time your computer's been on for the last year. Wow. And it was continual. And then when I switched it on, now it's probably on about 10 hours a week. Because I just like the convenience of walking over and turning it on. Now I've got the convenience of walking it on and turning on the television and the computer. And it takes me nearly 20 seconds to use it. So, okay, it's 20 seconds less convenient, but it's probably saving me about 15 to 20 pounds. Sorry, I say probably. Because of the reporting engine, I know that it is saving me 15 to 20 pounds per month on that one computer alone.
Energy.
So yeah, I do.
Yes, you do. Yeah. Energy, Daniel, is just, you see the big tech firms actually investing in power plants because of the AI needs. Energy is going to be the future. I mean, it's...
Absolutely. Well, I did a tour of the experimental fusion reactor in Culham in Oxfordshire a few years ago, and that is going to be very, very exciting when that comes along. They've been building it in France forever. I think they've been saying for the last 40 years that fusion power is 10 years away. So hopefully it'll be any day now. But all the reactors so far have been experimental, where the purpose of the reactor isn't to generate power. It's to learn things for when we build the big one. And they're in the middle of building the big one in France at the moment. This big fusion reactor that's not supposed to be experimental, that is supposed to be energy generating. And that's going to be quite exciting when the nuclear industry takes a step towards the safer and way more powerful fusion.
Does AI have a place in saving power?
That is a really good question. I think we would be hard pushed in our line of work as technical people to find any industry that doesn't benefit from AI in some way. We've even used AI a little bit in PC Power Save. Specifically, when I'm analyzing all the hardware in a computer, I take the make and model of every component. That make and model is then sent to ChatGPT, and I say, please find the manufacturer's spec sheet to find the peak performance power, the low performance power, and then please give me a link to the data sheet. And then my long-suffering colleague, thank you very much, Harry, has to then look through the data sheets and compare it with what ChatGPT came back with to see how accurate it is. And it's hit and miss. It's probably right about 80% of the time, and that does really, really help. But of course, the more components we train it on, next time it doesn't need to look it up online. So we have used AI in that, but there are some other advances in AI that will help. There's a little electrical circuit which I'm soon to be playing with. It's about this big, about the size of a pack of cigarettes, $39, and it's got a little camera on it. And if you point it at a tomato and you say, "This is object 1," and then you point at an apple and say, "This is object 2," every time it sees the apple and the tomato, it will recognize it. And it will say, "Hey, it's object 1 again. Hey, it's object 2 again." And it can recognize people. It can recognize animals. So AI is becoming embedded circuitry. And I use AI in a very loose term. I think we know that it's machine learning.
It is. It's a large language model, yeah.
Yes, but that's AI image analysis. And that is being used in a variety of fields. It's being used in agriculture at the moment to ascertain when something goes over a field. Oh, that's a weed, stab. That's a plant, needs water, gives it water. So that's where imagery is used to analyze things for crop yield. But you can also do things like having a microphone on a motor on a turbine to do predictive failure analysis using some AI tools. So you can tell by the frequency of sound that a motor's giving off if it's on the brink of failure. So it's being used in a lot of areas. Energy efficiency will most certainly be one, because if it can hear when machinery or see when machinery is not performing in an optimal manner, it can warn you to do some preventative maintenance. And I think the main area AI is going to help is explaining to people how they can save energy or stop wasting energy.
That'd be fascinating to see what happens there. So, Daniel, when I started my MSP, I'm a little bit older than you. I was working way too hard, 14-hour days, and not eating well, not treating myself very well, sugar drinks, and got myself up to 340 pounds. The doctor said to me, if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. My daughter was just born. So I spent the next 6-7 months, lost about 130 pounds. And people always ask me how, like there's some quick answer, like, what's your secret? There's no secret, people. It's discipline. I got routine, willpower, and I did it. I wonder how discipline plays a role in your life, Daniel Ellis.
Ah, yes. Would this be discipline in a work-life balance capacity?
Any you choose.
Well, I will begin with work-life balance, because work-life balance for me has been quite simply pick a job you love so it doesn't feel like work. And if I wasn't working, if I wasn't in this discussion with you now talking about energy stuff, I might be in the workshop next door making something for no customer, for no work purpose, but because I love it. And I think that's a wonderful thing. I think if you can find a way of monetizing a hobby, it won't feel like work. So I think that shows a little bit of a lack of self-discipline when it comes to a work-life balance, I'm afraid. Merely turning one's leisure activities into opportunity, perhaps. But in terms of day-to-day discipline, it's been actually quite hard with PC PowerSave to stay on track, because the amount of ideas I keep coming up with for other versions, version 2, version 3, I just came up with a little trick of how to deal with it. I wrote it down thinking, this is a great idea. I'll put it on the board under version 3, version 4. So now I think we're all the way up to version 50 with all the different little ideas that I have. But if I'm honest with myself, I only care about version 1. Version 1 is the product that does everything I've described to you today. Hooking it into infrared transmitters to turn televisions on and off, and hooking it into Wake on LAN to turn computers back on in the morning. That can wait for version 5, 10, 20. Even the PoE system took a long time to get to the front of the queue, or to even get in sight of the front of the queue. So it is quite hard to stay focused on everything that needs to be done. But I believe I've got some nice tricks to cope with that.
So you see self-discipline as a large part of discipline?
Yes, I do. But I think I might have missed accountability from my answer just then. because so, yes, I do see self-discipline as a massive part of it. However, I do struggle with that. So one of the ways I make myself accountable for things is I make promises to colleagues. I make promises to co-workers. Because the way I was brought up, if you say you're going to do something, you better do it. And the crime of not keeping your promise is far, far worse than it feeling bad, than you missing your deadline. Oh no, I missed a deadline. What a shame. No, I feel terrible because I promised someone I wouldn't miss the deadline. So one of the ways I hold myself accountable is I'm cautious to say, I will do this at this time on this day. And if I make a promise to do something, I will do it.
One of the pure benefits of the peer group, Daniel, is accountability.
Oh, yes. They give you a grilling in those, don't they?
That's right. You show up the next quarter, didn't do what you said you were going to do. Yeah, you'll hear it, and you want to hear it, and that's part of it. What motivates you, Daniel?
Projects that excite me, things that excite me, doing something good for the world. Those things. I like to be excited, and I like to do something good.
Boy, projects that motivate you and projects that are good for the world. That's a tough combination.
Well, yeah. I mean, as a typical techie, for a long time, a project that excited me was, we're building a server for a customer. I get to experiment with 10 gigabit GBICs or 25 gigabit GBICs. That means I can work with this new line of switches. I've always wanted to play with that. Oh yeah, that's that switch where you can play Snake on the front of it because you can make the sockets glow green and red. That got me excited. But for the longest time, specifically the 19 years I've been running an MSP, I got to do loads of little projects that excited me. But when you take a step back from it all and you think, what have I done that sort of matters to the world at large? I can say that we helped one of the largest light manufacturers in the world achieve slightly more sales due to a barcode system I devised for them. One of the largest wholesalers of beds in the UK is now a bit more efficient. And I fixed their server that time. I don't think anyone's going to remember that.
Right.
I don't think it's going to have that much impact. And you read about, when it comes to environmental disaster, global warming or not, whether you choose to concern yourself with that or not, it doesn't matter. I chose to concern myself with that, and I thought, how can I actually do something towards helping? And this little company, which is 29,000 houses, a little bit of a drop in the ocean, but it's something. It's a way of doing something, giving back a little bit, helping out. And that's what gets me going.
So given that motivation, Daniel, how do you measure success?
I measure quite a bit of it through joy, freedom, and flexibility in my life to do what I want to do. I like to be able to work on projects like this. I know that my MSP is in good hands because the tech team have great line managers who report to a great ops manager who reports to a great managing director who reports to me, who's pretty great. I'm okay. And I know that the company's in good hands, and I consider that a success because that means the less my phone rings to have to solve a problem, the better running that company is, and the more I can focus on doing things like this. With PowerSave, to measure success, I had to choose a number, which is why we said I'd like to get to 500,000 endpoints. Because I use EOS and traction, which I see the nod there. That's a nod of recognition. Yeah, EOS and traction. I've got a 10-year goal. 10 years, 500,000 endpoints. They always say you should have a 10-year, a 3-year, and a 1 year. So there's the 10-year.
Sure. There it is. Yeah.
Yep. So
your
different
BHAG
metrics. Yes, a big, hairy, audacious goal. Yes, absolutely. I'm with you there.
Daniel, so very cool to finally meet you and have this discussion with you. I was excited. The idea that these you have a problem with your MSP, you solve it, and then you're letting other MSPs benefit from it. It's remarkable it's a trait of a remarkable person, I believe. Thanks so much for your time. How can we get in touch with you? Anybody listening?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my name is Daniel Ellis. You can find me there on LinkedIn. And if you care to check out PowerSave, you can also reach me through there, which is www.pcpowersave.com.
It's there, and your LinkedIn is DJ Wellis?
DJW Ellis, short for Daniel John Wynne Ellis. Yeah, DJW Ellis. That's what my handle is on LinkedIn.
It sure is, and Ellis is with 2 L's. Daniel, thank you so much for your time. I look forward to seeing you. Perhaps we can have a drink when I see you in November.
That would be fantastic. I would definitely take you up on that, sir.
Cheers, Daniel. Be well.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Disciple Conversations. Please share this episode with 1 or 2 of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypinz.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Disciple Conversations.